Okay, so this next section is about the tips situation and how they were not like unfair, basically, about it. Um, so I used to work at the Howard Johnson Hotel in Claremont, California, right off the 10 freeway. And when my bosses sold it to the guy that bought it, he had promised us that we'd have our job still. And sure enough, I used to work the nighttime shift, the late night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I got off in the morning at 7 a.m. I went to where I was staying at the time, and they made the deal that afternoon. I showed up for my 11 p.m. shift that night, and they got rid of me. So, freaking, that's what those people are all about. But anyway, so pretty soon I ran out of money, and I had to leave the house. I was living with at a girl's house that I was renting a room from, and but I had no more money, so I that's when I came to my grandma's house. And then I got the job at Denny's, and I was thinking, well, cool, with tips. I mean, I should be back on my feet in no time. This will be no problem. But anyways, here's what actually happened. The tips were not shared in a reasonable or fair manner, 100% to 0% between the servers and the bussers, because even though we were dishwashers, we had to be the bussers as well, doing the tables and all that stuff. But they kept 100% of the tips. We kept 0% of the tips every time, every day. But I still had to bus and then reset the tables. The law says that bussers are included in the chain of direct table service, entitling them to 15% of the tips from the tables he or she cleaned and set for the next guests. I had to stop doing the dishes or producing to go out to the lobby and do all these tables. Then they turn around and give me a write up for low production. By the managers telling me that I cannot pick up the tips first, because I do see them first, but to leave them for the servers, they they make them they make the servers temporary holders of the tip to be redistributed appropriately at the end of each shift, not to keep it all. This was done every single day, and with both intent and the knowledge that what they were doing was illegal by both the servers and the managers. The managers showed reckless concern as to how it injured me on a daily basis, and since I complained about it all the time, they made many attempts to constructively discharge me. They also retaliated against me for it uh, when they gave me the write up for low production after forcing me to stop producing so that I could go and earn more money for other people. Mm, let's see. What was that? Oh, okay. So my boss, he kept on. I had to go. They took me in for a talk one day because I kept on complaining so much about it. So it was just me and my boss. And he said, my boss kept asking me. He said, "What can I do to help you?" Basically, to stop being mad and complaining. And I said, "Well, that's easy. Follow the laws." He said, "No." Then he asked me again, "What can I do to help you?" I said, "Have a manager shadow me all day, and you can see exactly what I do all day." He said, "No." Then he asked me again, "What can I do to help you?" I said, "Put a camera on me all day. I got nothing to hide. If I am on the clock, I guarantee you I'm working." He said, "No." Then he gave me two write-ups, one for being late too much, even though they have no problem making me wait all the time to clock on, even when I was on time as scheduled, and one for low production, as they forced me to stop producing. It's ridiculous. But anyways, back to the tips themselves. There was a battle between the servers and the owners a few years back that the servers ultimately won, and that is why they were foolishly given the power to pretty much do whatever they want, and that the employers cannot touch the tips at all. But the fact that employees keep all their tips left by a customer does not preclude having a fair and reasonable tip sharing arrangement. It is up to the customer leaving the tip who it belongs to and how it is to be split, not the servers and not the managers. By making the customers believe that the servers are splitting the tips appropriately, they are committing fraud. By misleading the customers, they are violating the California Unfair Competition Law, which is meant to protect customers from fraud and deceit. They also do not report the tips properly, except the tips left on charge cards, because there is a receipt, so they have no choice. They are supposed to report what they receive in tips, also who all they tip out from those collected tips and how much each day. Had they been reporting as they are supposed to, we would know exactly how much in tips the servers actually take home, tax-free, every single day. It would shock you. You will have to now go to each of them and ask about how much per shift they get, but it must be one-on-one to keep them from collaborating a lie. Then tell them that if it is a lot different than what all the other servers say, it will be obvious that they have lied and are guilty of perjury. Next, ask them, and with the tips on the cards? Because they will have lied and not involved those in an effort to be even more sneaky and slick. They will, of course, play dumb about that fact, though, by saying something like, with the cards, X amount of dollars, as if it was all in one complete answer and not what it really was, which is them trying to be more greedy. They all feel as if they are doing nothing wrong and that they are all somehow entitled to making me do all their work, but they keep all the money for it, untaxed, for forcing others to actually do the work to turn the tables more quickly so they can receive more tips, along with their full wage in the state of California. So to sum up, they are guilty of fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, conversion, and misappropriation of funds for the tips alone, with waiting penalties, also retaliation, constructive discharge, and hostile work environment for their actions in response to my complaints and for the way they acted and spoke to me when I would tell them that this was not fair. Also, favoritism, for telling me that I cannot just tell them for telling me that I cannot just tell the servers that they are required by law to share the tips, and for telling me that I cannot just take the tips off the table first, and with full knowledge of the fact that the servers were going to keep 100% of it every single day. And it is not as if after the rushes ended that they come back to the back to help me with the piles and piles of dishes. They are far too busy chit-chatting about who the hell cares what and counting their gigantic wads of stolen cash. Also negligence, which is an intentional tort for not doing their duties as managers of keeping things fair by using due diligence. The servers say that I should understand and be willing to allow them to screw me over like they did. Then they are surely going to be cool with me doing this now because of it, right? Right. Let's see. Oh, I have this article. It's by one of the one of the attorneys, I believe, that was involved in all this stuff between the battle between the servers and the owners about the fighting for the tips. And so check this out. It says, take this quote by Molly Elkin, an attorney who represents workers in cases brought under the Fair Labor Standards Act, at the end of the court battle between the employers and the servers. Worker advocates and labor lawyers, however, argued that the rule would give owners control of tips, which they could distribute as they see fit. Molly Elkin, an attorney who represents workers in cases brought under the Fair Labor Standards Act, told the Washington Post in December that it was a fantasy to think that employers would handle the tips equitably. The proposed rule does nothing more than authorize wage theft on the part of the employer, noted Elkin, a partner at the Washington law firm Woodley and McGillivray. The employer can simply pocket the tips, and Trump's Labor Department will not care. Okay, so now since the servers won that battle, simply replace the word employer with server. Worker advocates and labor lawyers, however, argued that the rule would give servers control of tips, which they could distribute as they see fit. Molly Elkin, an attorney who represents workers in this case brought under the Fair Labor Standards Act, told the Washington Post in December that it was a fantasy to think that servers would handle the tips equitably. The proposed rule does nothing more than authorize wage theft on the part of the servers, noted Elkin, a partner at the Washington law firm Woodley and McGillivray. The server can simply pocket the tips, and Trump's Labor Department will not care. So that's that. I mean, that's exact. Exact. If they won with this quote, before, and it's the exact same thing, I'm thinking should be the same way within mine now against them. It makes sense. Let's see. Otherwise, it's not fair or equal treatment, and that's illegal. As if they care, but it is illegal. The servers, they strut around as if they have some kind of diplomatic immunity and do not have to follow the rules set by the Labor Department regarding tip sharing, but that is not the case. So, anyways, think about it. We're talking embezzlement. The penalty for that in California, 3 years in prison normally, $10,000 fine. With fraud, that adds a white-collar crime enhancement, 5 more years in prison. The fraud itself is another 3 years in prison, and another $10,000 fine. And grand theft, which is what this is, can trigger asset forfeiture. And these are just the normal penalties for just 2 of the many violations willfully made by the workers at Denny's against me. So just from those 2, we're talking 11 years in prison, $20,000 fine each. So I mean, if that doesn't say that that's not okay, I don't know. But anyways, and like I said before, right, I don't want to hear that, but don't you know that tips are the only way waitresses can hope to earn a decent living? Same with me, genius. And in the state of California, they make their full wage too. So take that somewhere else. This is pure greed. And don't try to tell me this crap doesn't happen at other restaurants too, because it does. Should they make more money? I don't know. Maybe they should. Maybe they shouldn't. But most definitely not at my expense. Let's see. Oh. You give the waitresses the power of managers, owners even, deciding their own wage, and in doing so, mine as well. While the actual managers hide their heads in the sand, except only to tell me that I cannot tell the waitresses to follow the laws. Have you lost your minds? They're waitresses. Freaking, they are not capable of being put in charge of anything. They have no principle whatsoever. I can say that with zero hesitation because it has already been proven. It was proven every single day that I worked at Denny's. It was proven for however many days that there was in between the judgment in the fight between them and the owners and my first day working at Denny's. My guess is that it is still being proven to this very day, every day. So, and you might be thinking, well, you probably would have done the same thing if you were in their position. Well, I've got a surprise for you coming up in just a bit. I could tell you now, but I think I'll make you wait. But at least when I make you wait, the answer will be coming. Unlike you, different. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, nothing comes. Let's see. They should never have been put in charge of anything, and they never should be again. And quite frankly, neither should any of you.